Hey everyone, Damondred with Mayhem, here to give you a little taste of cerb ratting. So we're going to start with the fit. We do 6 heavy assault missile launchers, 2 large shield extenders, a pair of multispecs, a microwarpdrive, 3 ballistic controls, an assault damage, 1 damage warhead rig, and 1 core defense purger. As you can see, this is an almost entirely passive setup and fitting. You really are not going to have any issues with incoming damage, cap management. It's pretty much just point, click, destroy. The MWD is there just in case you wind up peeled off into some sort of combat engagement while you're out and about. It's not necessary for any part of the site. You might pulse it once or twice just to get in close to somebody that has drifted off away from you. The total damage, as you can see, about 800 DPS. Pretty reasonable against most of the Guristas that are out here. That kinetic boost from the cerb really comes in handy. And as you can see, without having the assault damage on, we're already up at over 84% in terms of your resistance. So the incoming damage is pretty trivial. You can practically stand still and tank the sites that way. They wind up being very straightforward and easy for you to go through and do. The one thing to note, that ADC is for if you get dropped or if you get a dread spawn. You can do any site in our territory using these. It really is pretty straightforward, simple, and easy. The nice thing, and the reason why I use this over the Ishtar, A, it'll keep you awake, and B, if you wind up in some sort of engagement, you don't just instantly explode. So, here we are. We're going to go ahead and just get started. Grab a site. I did a Forsaken Rally for this because they're quick, easy, and simple. As I said, you can do anything you like in these. I wouldn't do Forlorn sites just because they're harder and don't pay out more. But any of the Forsaken sites, havens, hubs, rallies, you name it, you can do it. Now, with the hams, your ranged missiles will give you a range of about 30 kilometers, maybe a little longer. You can see me just check to make sure that I'm on rage because you are going to wind up swapping missiles back and forth. Also, just for kicks and giggles, we're going to pretend that I have 3 drones and didn't lose one last sight. Use the 3rd drone. It's a little bit of extra damage, but it's pretty much just there for a token addition. In general, I prefer to go smallest to largest. Again, you're so over-tanked that it doesn't really matter, but the smaller ships are going to do more damage to you. Once you have a wreck, you can sit there and orbit it. You can also orbit a battleship. Pick your poison. It's not a huge difference one way or the other. Guristas do jam, and because you're on missiles, occasionally that will decide who you're shooting. But as you can see already, we chew through them pretty quickly, so it's not a huge issue to jump around back and forth between them. One thing to remember on missiles is that there is a little bit of a delay between when you fire the missile and when the damage comes through. So as you're watching me go through these sites, I'm not going to pretend to be the best at it, but you actually want to stop firing the missiles just a little bit before the ship dies. That way you aren't wasting additional rounds that don't actually connect with something meaningful. So we clear out the first wave nice and quick, go through the site. Guristas are shield tanked, so once you're through the shields, you clear out pretty quickly going through there. I tend to cut off the missiles, ideally right about at that point. When you actually get down to structure, that's where you cut them loose. For the waves that have frigs, first of all, pull out your drones so that you have 3 of them, not 2. Second of all, switch to Javelin. The Javelin will apply better. The Rage has such a large explosive radius that it just doesn't hit very hard against the frigs, so you'll clear them out a lot faster if you swap to Javelin. Also, occasionally you will have drifted quite some distance away from the spawn site. I say some distance. You don't have a prop mod on. They're not very fast, so some distance is like 30 kilometers, but it's enough that that first couple of rounds, it's easier and faster if you're on Javelin, and the reload time on the hams is pretty quick, so it's not a big cost to go back and forth between the two of them. As I said, this is a relatively active ratting setup. You're going to be hitting F1 a lot, so it's not a set it and forget it, but it is a relatively straightforward setup. Pick the targets that are close to you, pick the targets that are far away, whatever is your fancy, go ahead and clear through them. The only thing to keep an eye on is you want to make sure that you stay within about 30 of the outer range ships so that your ranged missiles continue to apply. From there, it really is that simple. Just go through the site, clear out the ships, cycle back and forth. As you watch, you'll see me make a couple of attempts, like on this one, where I'll stop actually firing early. That gives you just a little bit of extra time to reload or to cycle back and forth, start putting damage on the next target while the missiles are in flight, but that is a relatively small optimization. Also, I highly recommend you don't spend a lot of time actually watching yourself do these things, because you realize you spend like 15 seconds sitting there not actually firing, and then you're embarrassed in front of all your friends on YouTube. But the rest of the site, as you'll see, is very straightforward. You'll cut through these, I won't say like butter, but it is quick. The main optimization that you'll run into as you go through these is wanting to make sure that you drop missile rounds a little bit early to make sure that they've got that little bit of extra travel time to go through and take out the sites. And then from there, it's just swapping missile types back and forth as to whether or not you're applying to frigates, which are what you'll use Javelin against, versus the larger ships, which are Rage. So we'll give it a moment here. Watch things go kaboom, because everybody likes things going kaboom. You'll see me readjust my orbits to get in close. The one conquistador is a little far out, so his friend gets to die first. But beyond that, it's really as simple as can be. One thing I do want to talk about, because this is the reason why you're in this ship, is what happens if something goes wrong. So, as you saw, the Javelin missiles will apply to small frigates and to bombers. If you get dropped, first of all, scream for help. That's what they're there for. X up in fleet, yell bloody murder on comms, get people coming toward you. Next, watch the incoming damage, and you want to activate your ADC about when you hit 50% shield. That's because your maximum regen is at 33%, and you want the most resists you have while regenerating the most shields. Work on taking out the bombers, keep calling for help, align out. You can use the MWD to try to break tackle if they only have a point, but your objective is to make them pay when they actually hit you. You're not a combat ship, first and foremost, but if somebody does come tangle with you, you can actually do quite a bit of damage to them and make them suffer for it. So, this next spawn, we get some extra cruisers in here. As I said, I tend to do the smaller ones first, partly because they'll go after the drones, partly because they actually do more damage than the battleships. Even without the prop mod, you're moving just fast enough and have a small enough SIG that they don't do a ton of damage to you. But overall, it's pretty straightforward. The cruisers will die 3, maybe 4 rounds, depends on your skills, depends on the range. So keep an eye on it, cut off, but go through and work through that site. There's not a whole lot more to this, so what I'm going to leave you with on this is just some pretty pictures, some pretty kabooms, and watching me make money because Strat got called at the same time as my ship was out, so everyone started buying from contracts. Shh, don't look too close. That, by the way, is not the tick that you will expect. You'll see in a few minutes here, we do get an actual bounties tick. I'm ratting in a 150 system, so my raw ticks are in the 15 million range, normalized to after the ESS, And a 100% system, you're looking at about 15 million for each of your ticks. That's a little bit less than you'll do in an Ishtar, but it's close. The nice thing is that you can go out and be a little more brave with this fit. Feel comfortable ratting in systems that might be camped. Don't be suicidal, but you don't have to be quite as afraid because you're a little bit more resilient than some of our Ishtar fittings, and you're a little bit more dangerous to the things that might come toward you. So you can go for higher DBMs, you can go for things that are a little simpler. The total cost of your ship is about 300 million. You'll make that back in a couple of hours, especially in a higher DBM system. So it's well worth swapping to this. And the nice thing is that if somebody else gets tagged, you're in a position to go help rather quickly. The Javelin missiles will reach out to about 70 km. 60 to 70, depends on your skills, and that's more than enough range to actually hit some of the ever popular kitey fits as they peel away from you and get them off of our friends and help save some folks in standing. So with that, I really will just let you watch the things explode as we move through to the end of this. So there you can see, as promised, 15 million bounty tick. We're just going to finish off the last little bit of this site. As I said, the cerb is a functional equivalent. It produces similar ticks and performance to what you'll get out of the Ishtar, but offers you a little more survival and resilience in case something nasty comes your way. So with that, I will remind all of you to make mayhem, be brave, and get out there and go get us some money. Because it is home after all, and that's what we're all here for. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy Pure Blind.